So this is Disinformation, the company. That logo is actually interesting in itself. But let's look at key people here. Matt Staggs. Matt Staggs. Who is that? That's Joe Rogan's producer. Okay? Let's just pull that up real quick. Twitter. Now, here he is. This is Joe Rogan's talent booker, the guy behind the scenes. Okay? There's many guys behind the scenes with Joe Rogan, and this is one of them. And he is a key person with Disinfo, working with Bruce Damer, etc., working with Howard Bloom, Bruce Damer, etc. Channel 4. Now, what do we have under documentary films? Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. That is Alex Jones's film. Now, that Endgame title he took from Paul Valley, the guy I mentioned before with the future Soviet warfare theories. That was initially coined by him, that Alex Jones took from him. But it's interesting, we see Disinfo working with, right, Joe Rogan's talent booker, the guy behind the scenes, working with Alex Jones. Disinfo working with Alex Jones, as well as Channel 4. Now, Channel 4 worked with John Ronson. John Ronson is the guy who wrote The Men Who Stare at Goats. Now, this is an interesting connection here. John Ronson, so we're just tying this up with some military connections. John Ronson is the guy who Alex Jones snuck into Bohemian Grove with. So John Ronson, working with the BBC at that point, is the guy who snuck into Bohemian Grove with Alex Jones, which kickstarted him. So here we see Alex and John hanging out. Alex having John on his show. And Joe and John hang out, and Joe has John on his show. Okay, so are we seeing how these networks play in with each other? Now, Alex on his last podcast with Joe was talking about how they were in films 20 years ago together. They were in John Ronson's films for the BBC or Channel 4, right, working with Disinfo. Interesting name. Right, and then you can go double check Matt Staggs. You can pull up his podcast for Disinfo. He's very interested in concussions, just like Joe is. Very interested in that. You know, I think he'd be interested in my story. You know, if he was somehow able to understand my history, I think he'd be very interested in my life story. But anyway, these two work together. And The Men Who Stare at Goats. Stubblebine thought that with enough practice he could learn to walk through walls. With a brief encouragement by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Shannon, a Vietnam vet whose post-war experiences at such New Age meccas as the Eselan Institute and Big Sur led him to found the first Earth Battalion warrior monks and Jedi Knights. So The Men Who Stare at Goats actually comes from the Eselan Institute. Again, we're seeing everything stem from the Eselan Institute. And